Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We are experienced investors with the huge advantage as we have been able to learn from our family that has well over 100 years of experience in real estate and other alternative investments. Here on Master Your Millions, we seek to share that experience that we've learned and expand our knowledge as we talk to the top leaders in alternative areas of investing. Today, we are super excited for our guest, Jason. Who do we have coming on?
We have one of my neighbors, believe it or not. Although he decided to move away. I don't know if I created too much stink in the neighborhood or what, but he was my neighbor for a little while. We're excited to have Shane Wilde on. He comes from a place in Utah that's really pronounced interestingly. It's called Hooper. I believe I said that right. You can say it right in a minute. Anyway, he went to college at Utah State University, was in sales for a while, and then he's turned to become a teacher and a coach and a property manager, especially specializing in Airbnb. So welcome to the show, Shane.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And you did say it right. That was actually really good. Hooper, not
Wow.
Hooper.
Yeah, it's spelled Hooper, but the people there say Hooper, something like that.
Right.
All right, cool.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell us, you were quite successful there's a large company in the Cache Valley called Maloof, and you were sounds like a regional sales manager there and doing very successful. What was it that made you walk away from a very secure and stable W-2 job to go into something else?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the whole story. And while I was at that job, I felt like from the outside looking in, people would look at what I was doing as like, Shane, you've got it made. The company had a private jet, and I would fly out on the private jet out of Logan Airport, and they would take me to where I needed to meet with my clients. I would eat whatever I wanted. We'd wine and dine clients, stuff like that. And from the outside looking in, it looked like, oh, Shane he has it made, right? And from the inside, I was dying and I was eating myself away because there was one turning point, and it's very near and dear to my heart because it includes my daughter. So I had on my monitor, with my daughter, I was sitting in my cubicle one day, and my wife sent me a video, and I opened it up at lunchtime, and it was a video of my daughter rolling over for the first time. And that was a dagger in my heart. And that might seem like an over exaggeration, or something like that. But in my mind, I thought that if I was going to miss her rolling over, I was going to miss her first steps. And then if I missed those, I was going to miss her first day of school and her first, I don't know, softball, basketball game, and her first date and her first, whatever it is, And so I almost started panicking, like, what am I going to do? Like from the outside looking in, Shane has it made, but from the inside of me, I was like, I can't do this because I'm gone all the time and I need to do something different. And I knew I had always felt like I was an entrepreneur. I had started a couple small businesses in college, and I knew that I wanted to be my own boss, because a lot of people will say, oh, you have a W-2 job, it's super stable. Well, someone else is telling you whether you can show up or not at the end of the day, right? Where if you're an entrepreneur, you have those reins. So I have this, I put this little sticky note on my desk from a quote from a guy that I love. His name is Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn had this quote that says, "For things to change, you must change." And that stuck with me. And that was a huge thing, that if I wanted my circumstances to change, I needed to be the one that changed. The world really doesn't care what Shane is doing. The world doesn't care if Shane has a W-2 job or not. It's all in my hands, right? And that combined with what I had going on with my daughter were the things that really pushed me over the edge and made me quit and really go full into short-term rentals and real estate investing.
So Shane, while this was all going on, this whole process, were you already in short-term rentals, or that was just the moment that you're like, hey, I need to find something else?
Yeah. So I had been at actually I think it was a Halloween party for that company that I was at, and one of the employees' husbands I was talking with, and he had introduced me to the idea of Airbnbs. In fact, there's this method within Airbnb called Airbnb arbitrage, where you can rent a property to re-rent it and put it on Airbnb. Some states like it, some states don't. And
So
he
put a fine
introduced me
point
to
on
that.
that real quick. Put a fine
Yeah.
point on what that is. So you're saying someone else owns a property and I rent, say, take out a year lease on that, and I rent that, and I turn around and sublease it to someone coming in a short term.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying. Okay. I want to make
Exactly.
sure that
Yep.
our most of our listeners probably get it, and I want to make sure that everybody got it. So keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes. Yep. No. So we call that Airbnb arbitrage. And so that's how, so he introduced me to that, and he said it's pretty low barrier to entry. And there was this light bulb off in my head. And I was like, I go get one. So early on, this was probably a year before I ended up quitting my 9-to-5. So I had 2 properties before I quit my 9-to-5 job. So I was in it a little bit, and I felt like if I could take my 40 hours that I'm working at this job and turn it in or take that 40 hours and use it with something that I'm super passionate about to obviously grow my portfolio and stuff like that. So we did do arbitrage then, and we still do arbitrage, but we invest in real estate as well. So I think there's a few different methods to do Airbnbs, and that's kind of what we've done. We've kind of tapped into a bunch of those different avenues.
That's awesome. So did you own any before quitting and moving on, or did you just jump in full board?
We had owned, I'm trying to think, we had owned one long-term rental when I ended up quitting, and we just had two arbitrage properties at that time. So it was something where obviously it's scary, because even like me wanting to get more and deeper into real estate, quitting my job, like the banks don't like entrepreneurs that much, right? It is what I thought. And you have to get a little more creative when you all of a sudden don't have a 1099 or a W-2. And we just made it work. So now we own 5 properties. So not a ton. We manage about 20, soon to be 26 here in the next couple weeks. We will manage properties for other people as well. That's another method of doing Airbnb, right, is managing for other people. And so yes, to answer your question, we barely had anything when I quit, and now it's kind of taken off, and it's what I'm super passionate about, and I love it.
Sounds like to me when you made the jump it was a little bit scary.
Yeah, it was. I asked, or I kept telling my wife, like, I need to do something different. I know that this is what I'm supposed to do. And she says, okay, do it. Like, doesn't even think twice. Okay, do it. And I go, well, what about this? And what about this? And she taught me a huge lesson that I will forever be grateful for. She said, Shane, what is the worst that's going to happen? And I go, well, I quit my job. I don't know, I'm not able to pay for our lifestyle. Okay, what else is going to happen? What about deeper than that? And we went deeper, and she was helping me peel back these layers, and she said, Shane, the worst that's going to happen is you quit your job, you fail, and then you go get another job, and then we rebuild, and then hopefully you want to quit it again so we can build the lifestyle that we really want. And that hit me hard because that's really what I wanted, and that really is what the worst case scenario is, right? You quit your job, I mean, we made sure we had a little bit of reserves, which is smart to have before you quit a job, right? We had a little bit of reserves, but we put our backs up against the wall and we said, well, we either need to make it work or Shane's getting a job. And I said, there's no way in heck that I'm going to get another job. So we went to work. I went to work, put my head down and made, I mean, my first couple months being out of the job, I ended up getting my real estate license, and I made like 3 times what my salary was that year, which was amazing, and just a testimony to me that, like, if you do hard things and put your back up against the wall, then you'll make it work. So it was scary, very scary at first, but and that's something that I coach my students on as well. When I'm coaching my students through how to purchase a property and looking at it through Airbnb goggles, it's scary. Lots of people want to get into real estate, and getting into it, pulling the trigger on that first one is definitely the scariest part. You guys both probably can attest that the very first one is the scariest. And then after that, you're like, okay, I know what the processes are. I know what I need. I know this or that, or what the lingo is. But I agree that the very first one is pretty hard.
Shane, I have to laugh because you sound very, very similar to my deceased grandfather. He used to walk through that same process. What's the worst that can happen? Because the moment that you confront your fear and spell it out, what that fear is, it dissipates. It goes away. And so I would encourage anyone that's having a hard time jumping in, do the same thing. Confront that fear and then burn the boats, so to say. There is no going back. It is only forward. And often when people do that, they find success far beyond anything they were hoping for. I know, Jason, you had a similar experience with that as well, didn't you, when you finally made the jump?
Yeah. And to some degree, I was a little bit forced into it, thankfully, with the 2009 downturn, getting out of my W-2 job, same thing. I jumped in to do my own thing, and here I am 14 years later, enjoying it, having more of a lifestyle I wanted. I think one thing that Shane said that was probably the key is he had no time freedom, right? And that's really what you were after. It wasn't necessarily a huge income as much it was, I want to have control over my time. When I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area and Biotech Bay, I mean, I had a minimum 45-minute one-way commute. Sometimes it was an hour and a half. And the first year that Scott played T-ball, I didn't make it to a whole game. It killed me. And I took a huge cut in pay to come to Utah. And then I became the coach of the team and was always there. And that was worth by leaps and bounds over the 50% cut and pay in the W-2 at the time, to simply be able to be with people I loved and have control of my time. Shane, I'm sure you haven't had complete successes all the time. Can you tell us about one time when you kind of had a crash and burn, and tell us some lessons that you learned from that and what other people need to learn from that?
Yeah, for sure. Just to touch on what you were just saying, it is the time freedom. And I think time is so much more valuable than the actual dollar amount, with exactly like what you were saying. And I have failed miserably multiple times. And I am a firm believer that failing is a very good thing. I want to be able to sit at the dinner table with my children when they come home from school and not say, "Hey, what did you learn?" I want to say, "Hey, how did you fail today?" Or what mistakes are you trying to overcome? Or what problems did you see that you can help solve, or something like that. I think that's huge. Some mistakes that I have had, um, some monetary, some with relationships, and I want to talk about a relationship. As you know, I run short-term rental property management company, and my cleaners are the very most important part of my business, because if I don't have a property that's cleaned properly, then I have a guest that comes in and complains, they would give me a bad review. And my whole company really hinges on how good those reviews are. Because if I get good reviews, then I get ranked up at the top of the algorithms, more exposure for my properties, and then people will book them more. So my livelihood is based on literally how clean these properties are and how well trained my cleaner is. And so I had a cleaner that wasn't great, and with this cleaner had kind of an attitude with me sometimes, and to none of her own fault, I would kind of get back into it with her, because I'm like, "Hey, you didn't do this and you didn't do this, and so we need it fixed. So you need to go over there. It's 10 o'clock at night. Please drive over there, the 30-minute drive, and go fix this, because the customers aren't happy." And obviously any employee or anything like that isn't going to respond very well. She wasn't my employee. She was 1099 for me. She had her own cleaning company. But I relied on her heavily. And there were multiple instances like that I was like, "Hey, this happened. Can you please do it?" And she would give me some guff about it, and say that wasn't her fault, and that wouldn't make me very happy at all, right? As you can tell, if having dinner on the table for my kids depends on how well you clean up that place, I'm gonna be passionate about it. And I was. And I ended up letting her go, because things kind of went south with our relationship, because she wouldn't respond to some of the things that we were needing to have happen. And looking back at it now, obviously hindsight's always 2020. And actually this week, I think I've said this every single day this week in any of my calls with any of my students, or just talking to other friends, that relationships are the most important part of anything you do in life. I love the adage, your network is your net worth. Because the people who you surround yourself with, the people who you're able to help and everything like that just is so amazing. So looking back at my cleaner, I failed her miserably, and trying to get another cleaner that could do that many properties was a disaster. So looking back, I mean, this is just one of many mistakes that I've made. But I wanted to just point out the importance of relationships, because if I could have maybe trained her a little better, if I could have spent time, maybe if I could have asked questions like how are you doing? How's your family life? How do you think that this should be cleaned, or are there different ways that we should be doing things? If I could have understood her a little bit better, I feel like that relationship could have turned into a longer lasting relationship where I was just trying to cut to the chase and get it done right away, because I was the head honcho, and I was the one who was trying to make it all happen, right? And so yes, looking back, like I said, I wish that I would have asked more questions. Relationships are so important, and whether they help you or you can help them, or working together, right? There's so many things, and I think creating win-win situations is what it's all about. And that's one that I failed on for sure.
So one of the things on our podcast, we kind of a mantra, if you will, is we talk to people about having a team. That in order to truly master your millions, it's not going to be at a solo performance, and by any means. I don't care what stage you're on, it's not going to be a solo performance. And so you touched a little bit right there about key people on your team. Tell us a little bit about some other people and how you found those team members, whether that's a mentor, a business partner. Obviously, your wife is right up there at the top. How have you, has it been purposeful to get some other team members? Just give us a couple of examples there shortly about how you built some of the team around you.
And
Yeah.
I think Jason's also saying, like, how did you identify that those were key people? Because a lot of times I know us, other listeners, have a hard time being like, okay, that is the person I've been looking for.
Yes. So we do have a few team members, and I have business partners with on some of the real estate that we hold. I learned a really good lesson, or was taught a good lesson with my business coach and mentor, Kevin Karchner. He told me once, we were going over, I was about to hire someone, well, I had hired this sales guy, and he wasn't performing as he should. So I came to Kevin and I said, hey man, what do you think I should do? I felt like I've tried the best I can with this guy, and I'm not seeing the performance. He's kind of dropping the ball here. What do you think that I should do? And he pulled up this whole big long list of things, and then on one screen, and then on another screen he pulled up his contract that he has with all of his sales guys. And in this contract, everything was spelled out. It was like, you're gonna work like in this case, my sales guy was 100% commission, and everything was spelled out. Like, you're going to spend this many hours per week on doing this. You're going to contact this many people per day. You're going to do this and this and this. And the clear expectations has made all the difference with salespeople coming on now, because and that's where I went wrong. My other sales guy that I was talking to you about, he was a friend, and I was helping him with some employment. He was kind of in between, and I brought him in because I felt like he would be a great addition to the team. And I didn't set those expectations. I just got into it and I said, hey man, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're all about. This is the program. Look at it, take a look at it. Let me know if you have questions, but here's your first call. And nothing happened. And then here's your next call, nothing happened. And we went for a month like that, and we weren't converting people. And so I went to Kevin and he said, did you set these expectations? Look at this list. Did you set these? And I was like, no, I didn't. And that in and of itself has changed my mindset with anyone. I have business partners that are friends. I own a couple companies with some of our really good friends, and we've had to set the expectations immediately right off the bat, because business and relationships really, and friendships really don't mesh very well, right? So you have to be able to be cognizant of that, so that you can have a friendship on one side of the coin, and then on the other side, have your business and have it run successfully. Do I suggest that? Yeah, maybe. I think it may work for some people and may not work for other people. But I think the key to getting some of my key people is setting the expectations. I feel like, going back to my cleaning crew, I feel like I could have a mediocre cleaner, but if they know how to communicate, if they're willing to put in the work, I can train them how to clean better. But how do I make them a key person on my team is setting the expectations and tracking everything that they are doing, so that they can feel like they're being fulfilled, right? As I feel like setting goals and everything, if it's not tracked, you're never going to get to your goal. So that's what I try and do with every single one of my employees, is get some sort of tracking. And even with the cleaning side, like we track how many complaints, what the reviews are. We track how many doors she's cleaning, how that's going, what our ROI is on her, and everything like that. So having key people, I think is a lot of that is setting the expectations up right up front, and then you're just setting yourself up for success to be able to move forward with that. So that's what we've done, and so far it's working. Who knows if it'll work in the future, but that's what we're doing right now, and I feel very aligned with that.
So do you have a document or something where you list out and say, okay, this is what I'm tracking here, you can go check here, you can check here, and you literally have that process spelled out line by line for not only yourself but for your others?
Yeah, we have just a tracking Google Doc, and it's different for I'm pretty passionate about it with my sales team, because without the tracking, like I was saying, without tracking, we're never going to get from point A to point B. And so it's just a Google Doc that we have set up that just has what the expectation is, and then every week we have it set up by week. So on the left hand side, it'll be week, and then it'll say the dates, and then along the top are the expectations or the metrics that they need to hit. And it could be phone calls. How many people did you follow up with? It could be how many people converted, how much time did you spend on bettering your knowledge. I require at least 45 minutes a day of bettering yourself. So whether that's listening to a podcast about sales, could be reading a book to help you gain more knowledge, something like that will just help. But yeah, we do track that, and hopefully it works. I feel like it's working so far, but I'm passionate about that.
That's awesome. And I think a lot of people, a lot of people, they don't realize that that's part of being an entrepreneur is you're building a system. You're not just building something for you to work in. If you're a true entrepreneur, something that can sell in the end, you need to build that system. And I love what you've said there. So Shane, tell me, you've got 26 Airbnb units, you've got the coaching business set. What does it look like in 5 years? We're going to bring you back on here, and what are the goals you're going to have accomplished by then? And yes, we're going to hold you to it.
I hope you do. Accountability is and we can actually create a tracker for this, right? And we can track it for 5 years. I think we have some great steam going forward. Right now we have set up teams on both sides of the coin. So I have a team that helps automate a lot of the stuff for me on the property management side. We have a sales team on the coaching side of things. And my goal is to have that passive income for all of that to become passive by the time I'm 40. Right now I'm age 32. I want to have 82,000 per month passive income by the time I'm 40, so that I can spend more time with my family. Just like Jason was saying earlier about the time freedom. I think that's so important. I feel like right now I'm in the hustling side of or stage of life. So in 5 years, we want to have a company built up where we're managing enough doors to be able to bring us that amount of passive cash flow from what we're managing, as well as combined with the coaching program. What that looks like right now. So our goal for 2023 is to bring 100 people through our coaching program, where we coach about anything from how to find the property, how to launch it, how to automate the business, and then get up to 50 doors by the end of 2023. Right now, like I said earlier, we're just about at 26 after this week. So what that translates to in 5 years, my goal would be to, instead of helping 100 per year, that it would continue to increase 100 every year. So 500 people per year.
Perfect.
As we do that. So
okay. January 25th, 2028. Put it on the calendar.
I will put it on the calendar.
We do have, Shane, you do have a coaching program, we understand. And after the show, you'll need to give us a link, and we'll put that in the show notes. So if our listeners wanted to get a hold of you, that's what they would do. Is go to the show notes and figure out a way to get to you, and you could certainly mentor them and have them go through your program. We're kind of running out of time a little bit. I wanted to get to, though, something we talked to a lot of people about. On a scale from 1 to 10, what would you say your understanding of the infinite banking concept is, and how can that apply to Airbnb?
That's a great question. I have actually heard of infinite banking, but my knowledge level of infinite banking would probably be at a 2 out of 10. So I think I will have to lean on you to help me understand more of what that is.
Okay. So why was it only a 2 out of 10? Is it something that simply out there? Something you're interested in? Where have you been lazy? To be teasing. I mean, where's the breakdown there? Why don't you know more?
That is a great question. I do not know. I've heard about it, but I think I just probably haven't looked into it or have been educated on what exactly it is.
So you're open to being educated, so coaching, if you will.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's something we could maybe connect them on outside our show here. We have found, Scott and I have found that as far as investing in real estate, the infinite banking concept is amazing. You were going to say, Scott?
It's the heart and soul to what we do. It is the heartbeat to, say, a body that functions smoothly. I was going to say, a lot of times we bring this up, but Jason, give us like a elevator pitch on what it is.
So it's simply the ability to create a entity wherein you are in total control of the capital, and then be able to use that capital and deploy it however you want, whenever you want, without needing to go through approvals or anything. And what it technically ends up doing is we can get into properties using our infinite banking policy, if you will, or our fund, our opportunity fund. And on paper anyway, we're into properties with none of our own money, right? So it's a no money into the property, which, as everybody knows, is essentially an infinite return on that property. Well, it also gives us the ability then to turn it, right? And to get into the next property faster and do it faster and faster and faster. So we have some velocity or some speed to our money, and being able to use our money multiple times in multiple different areas. The office that I'm speaking to you with today is 100% financed. The building is 100% financed using my personal banking system. However, it's using that as collateral for the loan on this. And so it's really someone else's money, and I have no money in this property. However, every month when I make the mortgage payment, it's completely available to me, both the principal and the interest. It's really kind of cool.
I would also say too, even though we are into these properties with nothing down, our money's still growing, compounding uninterrupted. And that's what's really cool. So of course, Shane, we'll talk more about that later, but
I love that. I've actually heard it be called velocity banking. Has anyone ever?
Yeah, there's a lot of names out there.
Okay.
The original guy who was a mentor of mine, he coined the phrase the infinite banking concept. And there's a lot of people that have stepped in and want to put a spin on it and give it their own name. So there's a lot of names out there. And it really doesn't, it's at the heart, it's just the right in the events, at the heart, it's the same thing. However, you got to make sure that you're doing it the way that he described it and using the right kind of vehicles, if you will.
Having it designed correctly. Well, Shane, we are super grateful that you came on today. You and I don't get to talk enough. I always learn from you, and it's fun to hear what you have going. As we wrap this up, for some of our listeners, do you have any final words or pieces of advice? Maybe something that you'd give to your 12-year-old self?
Yeah, that's a great thing to think about, right? What would I tell myself at 12 years old? And I would go back to what I already said, that sticky note that I had on my desk that I looked at every single day as I was trying to get out of my 9-to-5 job. The quote from Jim Rohn, for things to change, you must change. Lots of people find themselves stuck in so many different ways, from anywhere from relationships to financial heartache to even just living paycheck to paycheck. I can't remember what the percentage is of the US that's living paycheck to paycheck. It was like 75% of all households are living paycheck to paycheck. For things to change, you must change. And I think it takes looking into yourself and saying, okay, if I'm really going to do this, do I need to wake up an hour earlier to be able to work on this thing? Do I need to cut out toxic relationships out of my life that aren't serving me? Do I need to try a little harder here or not do something? I think there's a lot of things that you could look inside yourself, but for things to change, you must change. And I think that goes for everything. And I think you both have probably seen that in your own lives. as you both have these super high goals, right? And these goals of what you're trying to get, they're not going to get themselves. You have to change and really put in the work to be able to get there. So if I were to look at myself in 12 years, that's probably what I would say is you can do anything. I think people are saying, oh, my dad had this job, so I think I'll probably just do this job too, because this is what I'm capable of. No, that's 100% wrong. I feel like people, you're so capable of doing whatever you want. And if I was 12 years old, I would want someone to tell me that. If my daughter was 12 years old, I would give her all the encouragement in the world to be able to do whatever she wants, but it takes work as well.
I love that. Another way that it's often been put to me is you need to become that person before you achieve that goal. You will not have it the opposite way. Shane, thanks again. This was fantastic. I cannot wait for January 25th, 2028. Coming back.
Okay.
Jason, any final words?
Nope, get out there and do it.
Love it. Well, guys, if you'd like to connect with Shane Wilde, get some coaching, which I'd highly recommend. As you know, here we're all about learning and coaching. We will put a link in the show notes down below. If you'd like to connect with Jason or I, make sure to hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or shoot us an email. All the links will be in the show notes down below. Again, if you like this show, hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. It certainly helps out. And last, remember, mastering your millions all starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. Catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.